This is why we feel really agitated when we're trying to multitask, or when we're going between the tug of, WhatsApp notifications and Teams notifications and Slack and emails and calendar reminders. These elevate our brain stress state because our brain can't differentiate between a real and perceived threat.
Hello, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. It's really extra special for me today to be introducing you to a beautiful friend and colleague of mine who is just making a difference in the lives of employees and teachers and parents and kids all over the country and beyond. Her name is Dr Kristy Goodwin. She is a digital wellbeing and productivity speaker, author, researcher, and just guru. Kristy and I are lucky enough to be working together at the moment, which we get to do that every week, which is wonderful. Kristy is a mum of three, and I've really been looking forward to bringing Kristy to the podcast to help us all learn more about our digital distractions, how our devices and our time spent online is really impacting us in terms of our productivity as well as our mental health. And so, Kristy, thank you so much for sparing some of your very precious time with us today.
I couldn't say a bigger thank you to you today for scheduling this podcast. To give your listeners some context, I am lucky enough, as you said, to have three children, but today, which is a Tuesday when we're recording this, I have three children at home because two of the said children have contracted COVID. So I now have an escape clause. I have 1 hour to spend with you. I'm actually going to tell my husband it became a 2-hour podcast interview. Please keep my secret safe. And if we need to keep discussing, I'm happy to blow out the time that we've dedicated.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh, honestly, it's so hard, isn't it? As you know, and my listeners have followed a little bit of the journey. Our daughter has been home. Macca has been home. Actually, I got her back to school yesterday. And so what I realised, I'll share this with you, and she wouldn't mind. She has given me permission to share. She'd love me to talk about her all day, basically. What I realised was in her being unwell and not feeling well enough to go to school, and us going, all right, well, look, just stay home. And it was all gut related. Stay home until we have the gastroscope, because I think then we'll get an answer and then we can treat you, and it'll just be a few weeks. And then we got COVID in the house. It got postponed. So then she's home another couple of weeks, and then we needed an MRI, and then we needed an ultrasound. And what I realised was that there was this resistance about going back because she'd been away for so long. So I cannot tell you what yesterday morning was like. I have never had to hold so firm and strong as a parent as I did yesterday morning. It was breaking my heart, but I just knew, as a parent, as a kid, when your parents say, parents know best, we know what's good for you, even though you might not see it. And so it's my first experience of really having to help a child overcome that resistance in a huge way of getting back into what's really important. So I've just got rid of one, and here you are, and you've got three at home. So hopefully it's just the week.
Yes. Look, parenting's hard. I don't think anybody, that's why I often cringe. I'm sometimes mistakenly introduced as a parenting expert, and I think those words are an oxymoron. I think anyone that tells you that they're an expert in parenting is duping you. It is the world's most challenging, confronting, also rewarding and blissful. And that can happen in the space of 1 minute. We have friends that have just had a baby, and before they had their baby, they said, what's it like? And I said, it's the best thing and the hardest thing you'll do. And you will love it and you will loathe it. You'll probably do that within the space of a minute. You can oscillate between those. So I think it's tough. And I think whether you are a parent yourself or maybe you know someone, all of us do know someone who is at least a parent, I think we need to acknowledge that it comes with its trials and its tribulations, and it's not easy.
It is. It's extraordinarily hard. And what was funny, I had a flashback. We were in Rebel Sport yesterday, and this is not the topic of the podcast. People, we just take it wherever it goes, and that's what I love about my beautiful guests. I was in Rebel. We were getting, our son has outgrown his football boots and football everything. So we were at Rebel and I was choosing some new T-shirts for him. And as I was choosing things that he didn't like and putting them back, because I worked at Rebel Sport when I was at uni. I worked at Target, then I worked at Rebel. That was my casual job throughout uni. And it just took me back to a moment when I was putting things back in the right place and just couldn't help but sort of just neaten up the rack a little bit. You just in that instant, not in an overwhelming way. And in that moment, I thought, oh, those were such simpler times.
Isn't there something cathartic about putting order in situations? And I think this is one of the things that I've been speaking to a lot of people about lately, is that in chaotic times, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We've got a global war taking place. We've got, terrible natural disasters here happening in Australia. When things feel out of control, we often gravitate towards those simple pleasures and those simple acts that give our brain that sense of predictability. And in a world where there's no or limited predictability, finding those pockets of times where you can order the shelves and tidy the clothing, whatever it is that tickles your fancy, really can give us that sense of calm and, again, regulate our nervous system. And I think not only is it the chaotic world, but I think it's also our digital world that is completely dysregulating our nervous system. The pings, dings, alerts and notifications that have become the soundtrack of our day are adding to our stresses. And this is why many of us are feeling incredibly anxious, why people's stress levels have increased exponentially, and why I think we are on the precipice of a phenomenon I'm calling digital burnout. So we've got there somehow from you talking about tidying the shelves at Rebel.
Well, thank you for helping me make sense. It was just like this flashback of this moment in time, and I just thought simpler times. There's so much going on in our lives, and our digital devices, like you were just saying, can contribute. It's funny because sometimes we reach for our digital devices for that little moment, that little escape, but we know that they're also, if we don't tame the beast, they can be the slave or the master. And before we launch into learning more from your amazing wealth of knowledge, I wanted to share with our listeners today something that you've got on your website. There's this incredible passage that reads like this: "There is a war raging on that you might not be aware of. It's the battle of the 21st century between you and technology. There's a war raging on and you might be losing. So many memories to make, so many milestones to celebrate, but you're constantly being pulled away by the never-ending thumb scrolling, the attention-grabbing sound of new notifications, and the little red numbers on your screen begging to be seen. They say technology is a helpful servant, but a dangerous master." That's what I just said. Maybe that was just subconsciously in my mind because of having read this before. Now more than ever, people are tethered to it, and joy, happiness, and productivity are compromised. But it's not your fault. Whose fault is it?
I'm going to say it's I think we're living in a digital superstorm. I think there's three colliding factors that make the online world so appealing and enticing. And this is going to apply whether you're an adult who finds it hard to stop scrolling social media, whether you're an adult that finds it challenging to go laptopless, when we go on holidays and say, oh, I better just bring my laptop just in case. Or whether you're a parent who is, struggling to remove the digital appendage from their child or their screenager's hands. There's three reasons that make the online world so appealing for all of us, kids, teens, and adults alike. And the first reason is because the online world has been deliberately designed to cater for our three most basic psychological drivers. According to self-determination theory, we have three basic needs, and the online world taps into these. Our most basic human need that we all share, irrespective of our gender, our socioeconomic status, is the need for relational connection. We're hardwired to be part of a group, to be part of a tribe. And this is why social media, multiplayer video games, this is why emails or Slack or Teams have swept us all up. We want to be part of a group, and doing so online has met that need. The next need we have is the need for competence. And when I recently surveyed pre-adolescent boys and boys, asking them why they loved gaming so much, as a mum to boys, it broke my heart when the boys said, "It's only one of the only times in the day where I get told I'm doing a good job."
Oh, really?
They know how many Fortnite battles they've won. They know what level they've got to. And because, again, the games are so carefully designed, any teachers or psychologists might be familiar with this term called the zone of proximal development. Game developers are experts. They're the gurus at getting people into that zone. Not too difficult, not too easy. And so young people get to experience competency online. Young girls gravitate towards social media. Why? They get the social media vanity metrics. They get the likes and the comments and the shares. So they fulfill that need for competence. And the third need is that we have a need for autonomy and control. And I know for me personally, when the pandemic first struck way back in 2020, I spent more time on my phone and on social media than I had ever had before. Not just because I was trying to keep up to date with news alerts and the latest changes in restrictions, but because I felt like my world was spinning out of control and I wanted some autonomy. And I think this is why many young kids say they love being online, is because it's the only time when mum or dad or their teachers aren't telling them what to do. For us as adults, we think, we've got some choice over what we're doing. So that's the first big reason, that it fulfills our really fundamental psychological drivers.
Mm.
The second reason is that when we're online, our bodies and brains undergo neurobiological changes, and we're often oblivious to this. We know, for example, our brain gives us hits of dopamine every time we see something interesting, funny, entertaining online, and we don't have to work very hard to get that. You can open up Instagram and you can scroll through and see really interesting things, and you're literally just tapping and swiping. There's no sort of significant cognitive effort. Now, the problem with that dopamine hit is not only does it make an association, our brain starts to say, oh, look, my phone gives me pleasure, or my gaming console gives me pleasure. But the problem with dopamine is that dopamine overrides our prefrontal cortex. So the part of our brain that helps us regulate our behavior and say, look, 20 minutes on scrolling meaningless things on Instagram is enough, put it away and get back to your inbox or your Word document, Kristy. But when we're doing something pleasurable, that part of the brain switches off. It doesn't work effectively. So, and there's a whole lot of other things happening. We know for boys, when they're gaming, they're often getting hits of testosterone and adrenaline and norepinephrine, all these neurochemicals that make them feel good. So psychological drivers. The second reason was these neurobiological changes. And the third reason, and this is where we can fully deflect responsibility and blame the tech companies, is because of, I call it persuasive design. That apps, games, even your workplace technologies like Slack and Teams have been designed. They have been designed to be addictive, to be appealing. The fact that your notification bubble is red. Red is a psychological trigger for urgency and importance. The fact that we use metrics, so you've got 77 unread emails in your inbox, or you've got 8 Slack messages. Those metrics drive our use of the technology further. There's 2 big ones. One is that we enter something called the state of insufficiency. So when we're online, it's a bottomless bowl. There's no stopping use. It's like those beautiful infinity pools that just go on and on and on. And the final one here, another persuasive design technique, is the use of intermittent variable rewards. If you knew that every 8 minutes that you checked your inbox, something interesting would be there, you would not go in and check it. But the fact that you go in and there's a whole lot of boring things, but every now and then you might get praise from a client or a colleague commending you, or you get something good in your inbox, that unpredictable reward ratio gets us hooked into constantly checking. So it's those 3 big factors for all of us that make the online world just so appealing. So a little bit of both our faults, if that was a long-winded answer. A lot of
it is.
But a lot of it is how it's been intentionally designed.
Yes, and it's interesting when you watch The Social Dilemma or you watch any of the exposés that share the insights from the people who've been in the design chair from behind the scenes, who are now feeling like they need to lift the lid and pull back the curtain on what's going on so we can understand more. But understanding what's happening to us isn't enough to change our behaviour, is it? I know that I have the pull of the email, and that's one of the things that I've really identified about myself. And so I'm teaching myself to open it up, because I did your chronotype assessment and worked out that I am a night owl. And so I can do some of those, non-urgent actions in the morning, like just going through the emails, doing a bit of a clear out. And I love the word you use, a bit of a triage. I need to know more about that. But then sometimes it can be, you can dip in and out of your emails all day, and then you can feel like at the end of the day, what have I actually accomplished? Whereas if we stop and think from a rational, logical point of view, that nothing that comes into my inbox is going to be so urgent that it can't wait. That's from a rational perspective. But we need a little bit of distance, and we need some planning. We need some strategies, don't we? So we don't succumb to that lure and that pull that's so strong.
It is. And what you described is most I call them knowledge workers. So those people who spend most of their working hours on a laptop or a desktop computer for a core function of their role would be considered knowledge workers. And the digital Achilles heel for most knowledge workers is nibbling on their inboxes. We have adopted some really unhealthy practices, and we know that that puts a huge dent in our productivity. Let's say, for example, you're doing some deep thinking. Maybe you're writing a proposal, preparing a presentation, writing an article, something that really requires a lot of focus and attention. And you're deep in thought, and all of a sudden, if you haven't turned off your notifications, the ping of an email comes in, or a Slack notification, or a Teams notification. And even if you don't open it, what has happened is you have fractured your attention, and you have left behind something that we call attention residue. A small amount of your focus has been on that message or that email. Maybe it's the subject and the sender. Maybe you start hypothesizing what they might want. And so you have broken that attention. But the other thing that is really scary, and if we start to put this in perspective of the myriad of digital distractions that permeate our days, we know that it takes the average adult 23 minutes and 15 seconds to reorient their attention back into that deep focus state after we've been distracted.
Oh my gosh,
Like
it is.
working from home with kids was stressful and impossible. This is why
Yeah.
we feel really agitated when we're trying to multitask, or when we're going between the tug of, WhatsApp notifications and Teams notifications and Slack and emails and calendar reminders. These elevate our brain stress state because our brain can't differentiate between a real and perceived threat. And the fact that the notification or the sound or the alert, it comes to you. And so this triggers off the stress response because the information is being thrust at us. We have brains that are biologically wired, pardon the pun, to go and hunt and forage for information. But in the digital world we found ourselves, information is constantly being thrust at us, and our brain isn't designed to cope with that. And so this causes a stress response. We know, for example, when we go into our inbox, I don't know if you suffer from this, Jodi, but I know I do, it's called email apnea. We literally hold our breaths, we dump a whole lot of cortisol, our heart rate accelerates, our pupils dilate. We have a physiological response when we check emails because we've become conditioned to it usually being a stressful thing for us. These little digital habits, I mean, let's be honest, technology has got its tentacles into every part of our life. And we're often not cognizant, I don't think, about the profound way that it's adding to our stress, or like our stress load. And we know that if we leave it untouched, these can be really detrimental habits.
It's an unknown layer upon layer upon layer. It just creeps into our life, and but there's so much that we can do about it. But we firstly have to be aware of how it's impacting us.
Yeah. It is so critical. And I think we, as you said, are oblivious to the ways in which it has crept into every crevice of our life. And we know, for example, something as benign and common as getting alerts and notifications. That alert, because it has come to you, because it vibrates, because it makes a sound, and because it's usually in a notification bubble that is red, that triggers that stress response. Now, these are little micro stresses. I'm not for a moment suggesting that they're major stressful things coming our way. And as humans, we are designed to deal with stress. However, we are biologically designed to deal with completed stress cycles, and we are designed to deal with stress in short bursts. happening in our always on, busy digital world is that we very rarely complete the stress cycle. How many unread emails and emails do we need to get back to, and Slack and Teams notifications? I'm a mum, and I tell you what, the biggest pain for me is the WhatsApp groups and the myriad of messages that come through those. And so what's happening is we've got these open loops, these open cycles, and this doesn't end. You don't have a digital free day where none of these distractions come your way unless you deliberately turn your device off. And one of the really simple strategies that's been a game changer for me is batching or bundling notifications. You can now, with most tools, most platforms, doesn't matter if you're an iOS or Android user, you can now say, give me all my WhatsApp notifications at 8 o'clock at night, or send these to me at lunch break, rather than them sort of interspersing throughout your day.
It's that's one of the strategies because I've followed your work for a long time before we connected, and we became friends and also started working together, and I've learned a lot from you. And in fact, I have 0 notifications on my phone. So I don't, it's just a non-issue for me, but I will dive in to check on notifications, WhatsApp groups for sport, which is usually kids sport or my sport, and Instagram if there's messages to reply to and the like. But I want to go back for a moment with this idea of completing the stress cycle. On the odd occasion when we can you talk us through what completing the stress cycle would look like?
So a really common example that I hear, and this is where if you can tame your inbox and tame your email habits, it's a really profound game changer. So what happens is most of us go into our inboxes and we look through, we do a quick triage, and we look for senders and subjects, and we will open the email, we might read it, sometimes we'll reply to it, but other times we close it and then we think, I'll go back to that. But then when we go back to it, we have a myriad of other emails. And so we're in this perpetual state of feeling like we're on the back foot. So I suggest that I use a 5-folder method, and I encourage people to sift their emails. So first thing is to triage your inbox. So to go through and move things into folders. So whether it's a do folder where you actually will need to do things, maybe it's a digest folder, maybe it's a folder, so that might be newsletters that you want to read or blog posts. You might have one with some documentation. Maybe it's a contract you need to print and sign. Maybe it's some other proofread documentation. Another folder is to delegate. Are these tasks that you might hand off? And the 5th folder is the delete, like actually binning it. Once you've done that triage, anything that you can reply to in 2 minutes or less, do on the spot. Because when you've done that, you've closed the loop. But those other ones that you've moved into the do or the delegate or the digest or document folder, even though you haven't triaged them or dealt with them, you have given your brain the peace of mind knowing that they've been not necessarily archived, but they've been actioned. They've been moved into the relevant folder. And I can't tell you how reassuring it is to go back into your inbox and not see 871 messages sitting there. And again, it's really benign, but the fact we open up our internet browsers and lots of us have 15 tabs open, that can be distracting. And again, this adds to our load, and we feel like we've got these open loops. So I think having that time, I didn't come up with this analogy, but Laura May Martin, best job title in the world, she is Google's productivity expert. And so Laura May Martin says, treat your inbox like laundry. You would never go and get one sock and pop it in the washing machine and then pop it in the dryer. You'd wait till you had a full load, pop all the whites in one load and then the colours in another load. Then you'd take them out and you'd hang them up. We need to treat our emails like that, rather than going in and responding to one and then going back to our Word document and then getting another one. And we need to batch them and do them at set times. And the game changer for me, and I hope you've been able to do this when you did your chronotype assessment, is that for most of us, checking emails is a really shallow task. It's not sort of the deep thinking work that we do. Some of us do. If you're in customer care or customer service, then often that's a core part of your job. But for most adults, checking emails shouldn't be done during our mental prime time. So if you are, as Jodi suggested, she's an owl, so that means her chronotype fires on all cylinders late in the afternoon and into the evenings. These are your work colleagues who are sending you 11 p.m., 1 a.m. emails. They are red flag that they're an owl. Statistically, most people are middle birds, yet. So middle birds, their energy peaks roughly from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. They're not firing on all cylinders in the middle part of the day. And our larks are the early birds. They're the early risers. They're your annoying colleagues that suggest a 7:30 a.m. briefing call. They are the people that are firing off your emails at 6:30. The problem is that a lot of us are giving our peak performance hours away to email. That's a shallow task. We should be doing that when it's not our mental prime time, when it's not that sort of peak performance window. And this is where I think a lot of us are getting things wrong. And again, adding to the stress in our life because we're working against our neurobiology rather than with it.
The idea that we can use our mental prime time, as you so eloquently put it, to really dive deep and to shut down. And a lot of the work that we can do with pen and paper. And I love pen and paper. I do like to get off my laptop. I have, oh my gosh, see, Kristy's nodding. I have a workbook for each of the sort of realms of my work. So for podcast and for consulting and for general bookings for speaking. I also have one for some other work that I'm doing in strategy. And it's a bit old school, but for me, it's quite nice because if I want to sit down and think, then I'm away from the distraction of the laptop. But going back to what you were saying about emails, and I think you're right. And I think definitely the idea of it's just this added stress. It's sort of like stress by 1,000 cuts, isn't it? It's just these tiny little
techno
stress that just adds up and adds up on top of all of the other stresses and all of the other loops we can't close. And as an adult, I mean, I was just in the supermarket the other day and I was thinking, oh my goodness, I really need a new phone, and our son's phone needs replacing, and I probably need to look at sort of combining some different bank accounts to maybe refinance the house, because someone said, oh, we've got a really great new finance rate for the mortgage on the house. And I'm thinking, and every day, if we're not careful, we can create these mental kind of to-do lists that just add this layer upon layer upon layer. And we can't change when a friend says, oh, I got this great rate for my mortgage, and you start thinking about whether or not you can do that. But we do have control over a lot of the stresses that come into our day and how we manage the stress that comes from our digital devices. And that's what I love about your work, is that you not only have the incredible insights into why, but you have really beautiful practical solutions. And the idea that when we're in that dopamine drenched state of scrolling, I think we've all done it, haven't we? Where we go, I just one more. I'll just, and you're doing it. You just like, and then sometimes I just have to think, no, just put it down, walk away, because it's never going to be enough. You're never going to get to the point where you feel like, oh, well, that was time well spent, and that's enough. It's just like you say, a bottomless bowl. We could keep going. So
just on that, with the social media channels, a really simple tool, if you haven't done it, is to go into your Instagram or TikTok or YouTube settings and actually set it up so that it will set reminders. So you might say, look, I only ever want to spend 15 minutes on Instagram at a time. So please give me a reminder when I hit my 15-minute threshold. Now, it will pop up a reminder, and it is, I'm acknowledging, super easy to override, but it is enough of a cognitive jolt to give you a pang of guilt saying, I've just wasted 15 minutes. You can also set daily targets and say, look, I don't want to spend any more than 45 minutes or whatever your goal is on this platform. And again, easy to override, but it's enough of a psychological nudge, and you get that pang of guilt for you to go, okay, I'm going to course correct. And this is why I often say relying on willpower is not enough. These have been designed, and it doesn't matter if you're the most intelligent person and the most disciplined person, you are fighting something that's bigger than you. So often I do say, use some tech tools, use some tools. On my laptop and my desktop computer, I use some software called Rescue Time. It just runs in the background telling me what I'm doing. I get a weekly report telling me how many hours I spent creating presentations, how many hours I spent doing emails, how many hours I spent using calendars and scheduling tools. So a really good accountability tool. Can I circle back to one thing you said just about, and it really, I think it's been really pronounced in recent weeks with what's happening in the world and what's happening here closer in Australia. And one of the things you said, we do have control over what we are consuming. We know at the moment, sadly, it's not very hard to find really upsetting news. And this has always been the case. The fact that we're having, a pandemic might be a little bit of anomaly, but there have been moments in the past where there has been upsetting news. That's always been the case, sadly. But in years and years gone by, prior to digital technologies, we would have read about something in a newspaper. When television was invented, we might have started to see some footage. But now, with the advent of social media, and most people have a video camera in their pocket these days, we are seeing raw, unedited footage of some catastrophic things. I know young people saw the Church Christ massacre that was live streamed on social media platforms. We have now got footage of a war taking place in Ukraine, and the footage is often unedited. And so, again, these world events aren't new, but what is new is the way that our brain is constantly being bombarded with this information, and it's the graphic depiction. Again, there's a huge difference between seeing a photograph in a newspaper and seeing raw live footage of, a catastrophic event taking place. And so these, they may not seem significant stresses. They're not what we call, the big T traumas, but our brain is that's constant bombardment of these messages are really impactful. So really be mindful with what information you are consuming, and equally be mindful about when you are consuming it. I often say, try not to bookend your day with your phone. It really is the worst thing you can do for your mental well-being and your performance. And I'm talking here about first thing in the morning. Now, research tells us 90% of adults reach for their phone before their partner in the morning. If we do, the first thing we do, we unlock our phone and we might check email, we might check social media, we might check a news site. We activate the limbic part of our brain, and our stress response is elevated, and we haven't even had our morning cup of tea or coffee. And so we're operating from this already stressed state. And then once we're up, you might get an alert from your tech company telling you you've got an overdue bill. And then you get an email reminder telling you that it's Harmony Day at school. And then there's the WhatsApp messages that start coming through. You can see how these little micro stresses accumulate. Equally at nighttime, when we're scrolling before we're rolling into bed, it not only delays the onset of sleep, but we now know that being on our devices before we go to sleep has a huge impact on our deep and REM sleep stage. That's the restorative part of our sleep. Our emotional state is dysregulated. So there's just, as I said before, technology's got its tentacles into every part of our life. We're often oblivious to just the profound impact it's having on all of us.
It really is. And one of the simple ways that you can avoid that in the bedroom is to have an alarm clock that is not your phone, because it's so easy. And it's funny because I'm looking for the perfect alarm clock, and it's a bit of trial and error. I ordered one that was a little triangular wooden clock, and it had 3 dimmable levels of light, because I don't like any light in the bedroom, and we know that any light in the bedroom can be disruptive to our sleep as well. And there was recently a paper, I must admit I only skimmed it, but it was talking about even light in the bedroom affecting sleep elevates risk for cardiovascular, to our cardiovascular health. So that was just a passing journal that I saw in the news feed that I get. But anyway, I wasn't happy with that clock because it was too bright, and the dimmest level was still too bright. So now I've ordered another one. I've ordered the click clock, which is a little cube, and the idea is you click and it will switch on, and then I can have my alarm, and then I can get my phone out of the bedroom, which is something that I've been really working hard to do as soon as I get the right clock. Pete has his alarm and his phone, but sometimes we're waking at different times, or I'm a bit of a snooze button hitter. So, sometimes it's just a simple thing, and finding finding practical ways. So, right, well, if I don't use my phone as an alarm, then it is not in the bedroom. Then I cannot, number one, wake up and look at it and turn off my alarm, and then all of a sudden it's in my hand and my brain goes, hello, and I'm not setting the alarm and checking tomorrow's calendar before I fall asleep. And then, then falling into that potential habit of picking it up and just having one more look. One of the things that I've been reading about recently with regards to dopamine and the brain is the idea that we get dopamine, we get the little drips of dopamine or the squirts of dopamine from gaming, from social media, from online connection through Snapchat and any of the apps and the social media use that we turn to, and that the brain is designed to release dopamine for lots of reasons. And it could be, oh, I'm meeting up with a friend after work today, or I've got that really great instructor at my CrossFit class tonight, or I'm going to go out and have a really lovely coffee by myself and take my book and have a break. And just this is a normal, everyday kind of lovely little enjoyments that we can have, times of enjoyment that we can bring into our day would trigger that system. But it's almost like the threshold's changing, isn't it? That the things that would have once helped our brain to release dopamine, which is a reward neurochemical, that the threshold's changing. And so the things that once would have triggered that dopamine release won't. And so we need to search for the bigger hit. And I remember talking with Sarah for I did an episode on grey area drinking, and she talked about the fact that it's meant to be tickled, the dopamine reward center is meant to be tickled and not punched. And yet it gets so used to the punches, I'm using air quotes, that the tickles don't do it anymore. And that's devastating for our mental health.
Yeah. And
devastating.
I call it dopamine desensitization. And it's this idea, as you said, that our tolerance has increased so much that we need longer on social media to get the same hit. We need to watch more Netflix episodes. This is why gaming can be so problematic, particularly for boys, coupled with, obviously the social connection that it fulfills as well. And I think this is just a huge issue, and it's not going away. Again, we're not going, and this is why I'm not against, but I hear a lot of people saying, well, you just need to do a digital detox. Detoxes don't work. They don't get at the root of the problem. And what we have to do is create sustainable digital habits and behaviors. We have to use technologies in ways that are congruent with how we are as humans, our brain and our body's biological blueprint. And so that's where I think we need to come up with pragmatic, realistic solutions rather than, do a detox or have a phone ban or, aim for inbox zero. Completely unattainable, unrealistic strategies. I love the fact that you've got your phone out of your bedroom. It is such a game changer for people. And I often say the basics work if you work the basics. So if you can take your phone out, it really has a profound impact. And I know a lot of people struggle with this one. This is a really big hurdle, but it makes such a profound impact on your day. So if you can't get to taking the phone out of the room, if that's just too much, my 2 quick strategies is that if the phone does come in because you are just convinced it's the only alarm clock that's reliable, 2 things. Number 1, make sure that it is somewhere where you can't see it, because when we roll over to get a glass of water or to go to the bathroom, just seeing your phone can be a psychological trigger to start thinking, did my client email me back? How am I going to deal with that tricky situation at work? I wonder if people responded to that social media post. The second tip is that if it's in the bedroom, put it on airplane mode. Research from I forget which university, it was an Australian university, it was one from South Australia, found that 1 in 5 Australian adults are being woken up each night because of alerts and notifications. When we wake up, our sleep cycle is interrupted. We don't go, when we fall back asleep, we don't pick up where we were and keep going. And so a lot of people, again, aren't getting into that deep or REM sleep state because they're being woken up and they're going back to the beginning of the sleep cycle. This on the show, and I don't know if you'll provide a video with this, but this is a tool that I've been using in my family and recommending to other families, and it's called In Charge Box. And in the
I'll
box,
put a link. I'll put a link in the show notes
yeah,
so people can.
code
Yeah.
if people want to get one. So basically, it's a metallic box and it is a charging station. So you can put the family's 12 iPads, 8 smartphones, 6 laptops in there, and it is a lockable box with a key. So you lock the box, the devices charge, and you've got a designated spot for them. And not seeing them and having that physical distance from them really does make a profound impact on your sleep if you can set these up.
Oh,
They're a game changer.
I think that is an extraordinary tool to use in a home. And I think as parents, we lead by example. We are setting the tone in every way with our children in terms of device use and when and where and how and why and how much. They're looking to us, and it's no good us saying, "Well, you can't have your phone in your room," when we have our phone in our room. And one of the things.
I was just going to say, we even know that just seeing our phones, so it seems again really benign, but a study from the University of Texas found that when we see our phones, our cognitive performance drops by 10%. Put dumber, seeing your phone, even if it's on silent and face down, will reduce your cognitive performance by 10%.
10%.
We created these little charging boxes. So they're a timber box and they're breathable. And again, you can charge your device, but getting people to put their phone in their box while they're working makes a profound impact. Just not seeing it, not having it within arm's reach. Again, really simple thing. And it's not for the whole day. You don't lock it away and never touch it again, but just again, particularly during that peak performance window, if we can eliminate some of those tech temptations, it really makes us, feel more productive, and it protects that well-being as well.
Oh, okay. I've got a couple of questions for you. So I'm thinking of the barriers that are coming up. I'm thinking that Pete's mum needs we need to be able to receive a call from her or from a particular alarm that she wears at any time of the day or night. And also I think, like, for example, right here and now while we're recording this, I have 2 kids at school, one who isn't feeling great. There could be a phone call from school, and yet I've put do not disturb on my phone, and I have taken the home phone. Yes, we still have a home phone, and I've turned it on and hidden it in my bedroom because it just beeps so loudly when it wants to be put back on the console. So my barriers to switching off notifications during the day, or my barrier is, what if the school need to contact me? And so I think I probably need to designate the school number, do I, as a number that can ring through the notifications? Is this something that we can do?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's a really common barrier to people dismissing it. And the solution is really simple. So you can create what we call VIP notifications. So you'll go, and it depends on what software you use and what version you've got. If you Google how to do it for your particular phone or device, you can set, when you activate do not disturb mode, you can have it set up so that there are people on a VIP list who can still get through that digital barrier. So if you're caring for elderly parents, if you've got young children in childcare or school, if you have a client perhaps when there's a tight deadline and you're working on a project and they really do need to be able to contact you, they will be able to get through, but everybody else can't. You can also set up an automated response, so an SMS that goes to anyone who tries to contact you, and you can customize that SOS, that automated message. So you can say, look, I'm doing some work or I'm doing an interview. If something is urgent, call back twice. So there's some rules that you can set up to override that full do not disturb mode. So it works brilliantly because it blocks the people that you don't want coming through, but it almost provides a gateway for the people that really should be having their notifications go through. So they're called VIP notifications. Set them up and it gives you full peace of mind while also having that digital barrier to those pesky distractions.
Amazing. I love that. And I know that sometimes when we're texting, I'll see a little pop up that says Kristy has notifications turned off. And so I know on the other end that you are now and you're setting an example for me. I've not only learned from you by following you before we connected together. But even as we continue to connect, the way you use technology is teaching me. And so I know not to, well, I mean, we usually finish texting by then anyway, but I know that that's where you're at. And it also is a prompt for me to go, oh yeah, back to work. So it's really influential the way we manage our own tech habits on the people around us, isn't it?
It is, and it has a contagion effect. And one of the things we know young people, all of us, have in our brain something called mirror neurons, meaning that we are wired to imitate and copy. And as you said before, this is why it's so paramount that we are really good digital role models as adults, because our young people are copying us. And one of the really worrying trends is the rate of serious and fatal car accidents in young provisional drivers because of digital distraction. And so I often say to parents, a really important skill to cultivate is that when they get in the car, even as a passenger, that we don't get them into the habit of always checking their phone or always using mum or dad's phone, because that becomes a near impossible habit to break. Their brain makes a cognitive association. I get in the car and I pick up my phone. I get in the car and I can check my phone. And when we then get them behind the car as a driver, it is a near impossible habit to break. The other reason I say to parents, try to keep the car out of the phone, the phone out of the car with kids. Two strategies here. One is you can now set it up so that when your phone enters the car, do not disturb mode is automatically activated. You do not have to manually turn it on. And again, depending on your phone and settings, and the type of car, that is automated in most instances. So, and again, you can have a text message that goes back to people. So if they're trying to ring you while they're in the car, they get Kristy's in the car, she cannot take your call right now. Really, really important. The other reason that I say we need to keep phones out of cars with kids all the time is because the car is one of the few places in the world where your kids are trapped in close proximity. I don't know, do you remember Dickie Nee from Hey Hey It's Saturday?
I do.
Love Dickie Nee conversations. They love talking to the back of your head or to the side of your head. And the car is a rich opportunity. I have the best conversations often with my son when we're in the car. It's why, you tuck them into bed and you've been face to face with them all afternoon over the kitchen counter and at the dinner table, but they wait till they are in bed and then they tell you all the problems in the world. It's partly the time of the day, but also it's that side-by-side, back of the head, Dickie Nee conversation.
Yes. I love that. Although I'd really love to bring those really late night conversations, I'd like to bring those forward a little bit. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's just like, we've had all afternoon. I'm running out of steam. Oh my goodness. You've really got me thinking, because that's something our son will do. I'll pick him up and he just wants to check the sport. That's what he wants to do. He wants to know there's been a test playing and he wants to jump in and check the sport. And he's not a talker. And he'll chat in his own time, whereas our daughter is the opposite. She'll chat. Now that she's back at school, she's got stuff to talk about, which is awesome. You have given us so many practical suggestions that we can put into action to help tame our own tech habits. And I wanted to ask you, just before I ask you to share how people can connect with you and contact you, I'd like for you to, if you could, revisit, just as a little bit of a summary for us, some of the ways that we can reduce these micro stresses, this techno stress. Maybe just a handful of suggestions, whether they're the ones you've already shared or a couple of new ones, just as a brief summary, just to give people a little bit extra to take away.
No problem. I think first and foremost, be mindful of your digital load. So what's coming to you? And a really simple but overlooked way to control this is be mindful of what you're sending out. Can you pick up the phone and have a good old-fashioned phone call instead of sending the 15 WhatsApp messages that then create this ping-pong snowball serve and return interaction. So be mindful of what's coming towards you. I think really controlling your notifications, disabling non-essential ones, batching or bundling the essential ones, and creating those VIP notifications for those times where you don't want anyone else to come through. Be mindful of what times of the day you're using technology. Remember, ideally not to bookend our day, first thing and last thing before we go to sleep, with our screens. We didn't talk about it in much depth, but avoid using technology when you're already in a heightened emotional state, because chances are it will add to that emotional state, especially if you read, an upsetting email or a message that isn't particularly kind online. And I think the biggest one is being really mindful of just how profound the impact of technology is on your well-being. Is it helping or is it hampering how you feel? Is it adding value to your life, or is it having a significant opportunity cost? And the thing with technology in particular is that it has the potential to rob us of our two most important resources in life: our time and our attention. And so value, then we don't have to worry because we're pleased with how we're spending our time and our attention. But if we are finding ourselves doom scrolling or comparing and despairing or feeling negative, or just that weight of feeling burdened when you come offline, they can be big red flags that perhaps your time online is not being, as you said before, well spent. So taking a moment to critically examine, is this adding value or is this detracting from my life? And it sounds very philosophical, but it's really important, I think. The technology is here to stay. So we have to, as you say, tame the technology and not be that slave to the screen.
Yes. Oh goodness, you've given us so much to think about, and I think that one of the really great takeaways is this idea that we do need to actually take some time to reflect, that we can't be in it and trying to manage it at the same time. So if you're listening to this podcast, whether you're walking or whether you're driving or whether or not you're just taking a little bit of time out from work on a break, it would be actually really worthwhile to schedule some time to reflect on how you're using technology and to put some of those strategies into place, because you've shared so many fantastic ways we can manage it. But it is going to take an investment of our time to load up rescue time, to sort out how to do VIP notifications on our own phone, to know how to manage our day and where we could be doing our deep work versus where we could be doing that more shallow work. And yeah, that takes time, but it's an investment that will pay dividends that are infinite. Something else.
You just jogged my memory. I have digital dementia, so I don't remember much these days. But when you were talking then about having some intentional time off, one of the things we didn't even go down the path of is this idea of we have to carve out time for digital disconnection. In a world where you can stand at the supermarket queue, in years gone by, we would have entered what we call the default mode of thinking, or the mind-wandering mode. Today, we fill our moments of white space with our screens. And so we're never really alone with our thoughts. We're never bored. We're never digitally disconnected. And that unplugged time, I'm not talking about a detox, but having pockets of time throughout your day, your week, your month, where you are offline, is so critical for our well-being. I don't know about you, Jodi, but I have never, ever in all of existence had a great idea in my inbox or in an Excel spreadsheet.
No.
I have my best idea in the shower, when I'm swimming at the beach, when I'm going for a run, in the good old-fashioned days when I used to go on a plane with no Wi-Fi. Daydreamed. And so
Yes.
ideas germinate. The complex problem you spent months agonizing over, a genius solution just lands in your lap. But today, we just fill every bit of white space with technology. And so we're never left idle with our thoughts. And I think this is also adding to our mental well-being, that mental load you were talking about before. Our brain has like our computers do, our hard drive has a finite storage capacity. So too do our brains, and they need pockets of respite. They really do.
They do. And our nervous system, it's one-way traffic. It goes, everything that goes into our nervous system, there's not a valve. We can't drain off what we don't want, and so it accumulates. And it's this nervous system state where we're in high arousal, agitated, fight or flight, and we don't realize it. I did not realize how stressed I was. I knew because I'd have meltdowns and pockets of overwhelm, and I became unwell because we had a child that was unwell, ongoing, unknown, and there seemed no end to this child being at home with me. And so I could see how that was playing out in terms of my own mental health and well-being. Now that she's back, sometimes you don't realize how much stress you're under until that stressor is removed. And I think what you've shared today will help people remove a lot of stresses from their day, control the infobesity that is another one of your beautiful terms. I'm always complimenting you on your amazing vernacular and your beautiful metaphors. And I wanted to add, tell me, Dr. Kristy Goodwin, if I'm going to teach you something. I may or may not. I'll be disappointed if you already know about this. But have you heard of Unroll Me?
Yes.
Oh, damn it. So I have used that before.
It's good, isn't it?
It's so good. So for those of you, see, well, one day I'm gonna. That's my mission. I'm gonna share something with you don't already know about. I don't have time for that. That's never going to happen. So with Unroll Me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't done this for a while. But you put your email in, and it will show you everything you've subscribed to, and you can just go and you can either archive it or you can unsubscribe, and you can do it in a batch. And so therefore you reduce what's actually coming into your inbox. And I remember doing it and feeling free. Yeah. It was such a good feeling.
And another quick thing, I point out two things here. Just be really careful with any of those tools like Unroll Me or Unsubscribe Me that look like they're doing you a service, and some of them are. There is some concerns that some of them are actually selling your email address to other third-party providers, because it's that old saying that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So just be careful. I'm not familiar if Unroll Me is part of that, but I know for some of them, people thought it was doing them a huge service, but they were actually having their data, so what they were looking at and subscribing to, passed on. So not necessarily their email address, but their data was passed on.
Okay.
So just be mindful of that one.
Yes.
And my thought has disappeared. I said I did have digital dementia. That emails, it will come back to me after we finished recording.
That's okay. That's okay. Oh, look, I'd definitely love to get you back for another episode, because although I am tempted to continue this because I know that Nick's got the kids and I could steal you away, but I also know that you have plenty to do, and that knowing also that you are a lark, that this is probably part of your very productive deep work time. So I really wanted to be a lark. I was so disappointed that it didn't come as a great surprise that I was a night owl. I'm the sort of person that with no alarm in the morning, I could sleep till 10.
Well, when you kept saying that before, that you hit your alarm red flags went off, I think she's definitely an owl.
I know. I aspire to not.
You can't.
Pardon?
It's determined by your PE3 gene, so it's actually part of your biology, but your chronotype does shift throughout your lifespan. So because of sometimes situational needs, but more so just because we know a lot of adolescents, for example, tend to have more owl-like behaviours. Doesn't mean that they are all owls, but there tends to be a higher proportion of owls. So it can shift, but you can't swap it. You can't say, I'd like to trade my owl tendencies in, I'll be a lark, please.
That's what I was hoping, because I would love to be. It was so funny when I was going to CrossFit, I could, if I'm lucky, I'll make a 7:00 class and I can nick out while Pete's here and then get home and do the school thing. That hasn't been happening. But I generally go to the 9:00 class. And I met somebody once, and they said, oh, we haven't met before. And I said, when do you train? They said 6:00. I said, our paths will never cross. Our paths will never cross.
I was so outraged. Our gym's just changed its opening hours. So it used to open at 5 a.m. So for a lark, I got up, done a little bit of work in the morning, and then went to the gym. They've now pushed it back to 5:30. I'm outraged.
Oh, no.
Partly because I was the only one there basically at 5 a.m.
Probably. I used to, years ago when I was a PT, when I was at uni, I was one of these people that just had multiple part-time jobs. So I worked at a gym as well as in retail. And I, for a period of time, because of uni hours allowed me to, sometimes I would open the gym. Oh my gosh. It was just absolutely so difficult. And I would rock up, I would be in my uniform, but I'd also be in my Ugg boots, and I'd take my breakfast. I'd just do as little as possible before I drove. And I had a fairly significantly obvious vehicle at the time, and I would park it out the front so as not to take parks from the members. And a friend said to me a few months down the track, she goes, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. I just see you at the gym all the time. You're there early when I'm on my way to work." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's under sufferance, and I am not exercising." So yeah, the chronotype's really interesting actually, and we'll come back to that. But I've really just so loved talking with you, and I really would love you to share with us, please, before we say goodbye, how people can contact you. I want to say first, please follow Kristy, Dr. Kristy Goodwin, on Instagram. She shares so much gold, just pure gold, lots of insights, and it's so relatable, and you'll always pick up something and learn something new. So I know that that's one place people can find you. How else can people find you and work with you?
And thank you, Jodi, and thank you for your kind words. So the irony isn't lost on me that I'm trying to encourage you to curb your digital habits, and then I'm saying, come and spend some time online with me. And I just hope that they're just gentle nudges about how you can update your digital habits. So I am at drkristygoodwin.com, and I've got a wealth of online resources there that you can access, both free and paid offerings. And if you're interested in your digital wellbeing, I am active on LinkedIn, and we've got a chronotype product that Jodi's mentioned, and I'm happy to give your listeners a 20% discount. So I'll send through the code for that.
Thank you.
So you can share that with them.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. It's so interesting to do it. It may or may not surprise you. And as Dr. Kristy said, you're kind of stuck with what you've got for a period of time anyway, but it's worthwhile understanding, because that can help you with your digital habits, which can help reduce your techno stress and therefore boost your wellbeing and bolster your mental health. So Kristy, look, thank you so much. I'm really just so thrilled to have had this time with you today, and to bring your incredible knowledge, insights and wisdom to our listeners today. And I hope that the COVID kerfuffle in your house is limited to only the 7 days of ISO, and that you can manage to get through what you need to get through, because it ain't easy.
Thank you. And I appreciate the time and the escape clause for the last hour, 2 hours. You edit
2 hours.
a lot of this. If my husband listens to this episode, a lot of editing that Jodi had to cut out.
That's right. So much. In fact, there's so many. I coughed so much. I just muted myself. So, oops, I just gave it away. No, look, thanks again, Kristy. Thank you so much. And I'd love to talk to you again another time to learn more about our digital wellbeing and what we can do to help sort of preserve our wellbeing and protect our mental health. So thank you again so much. I'll see you soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.